One of the things I want to do for this lesson is show how we can use maps if you have already studied with your students what a map is, what is scale, what are symbols, what is a map key. Now we take it to the next level and we're going to apply grids. Okay? And with the grids, it's useful because a lot of students already have experience with Google Maps. So this way, what we need to do is using different points on a grid, first show them how to find those points, and then apply it to map, and then show the integration with math, okay? And it's actually an excellent integration because by now, I do this with 6th or 7th graders, they understand the difference between X and Y. They know this, they've been working on it with their teachers, but for purposes of geography, what we're going to do is identify the coordinates here on a map, and we need to teach them how. So, starting with the letter S, what I usually do to engage students is to show them, first, they have to know that you always need to start with the X coordinate first. Okay? So, since the S is located between 12 and 13, I make this line, and I show students that you're always going to go with the letter before. So for a 4-figure grid, which is what we're going for here, okay? The 4-figure grid for this one, we'll put the numbers here. We're going to start with 1, 2. Okay? Now we need to find the 4-figure grid for the Y coordinate. Since the S is located between 0, 0 and 0, 1, again, we go with the number before, 0, 0. Okay? I do this for the first practice, but if you find students aren't understanding, don't hesitate to identify other coordinates. If you feel like they understand it on the first time, or if even maybe more than half understand it, but the other half don't, pair them up with other students so that they can identify the other 4-letter grids. Okay? Four number grid, rather, is much easier than the 6-number grid. So, one of the ways I do this in terms of teaching is to show them that we have 12, 13, 14, 15. Well, what we need to do is shrink it. So, I make a diagram from here, show them, and then I apply it here. Once I show them this, and then show them the 12 and 13, usually I'll get the aha. But you need to demonstrate that these grids are broken up into 10 pieces. Okay? So now it gets even more difficult because instead of 4, we need to identify 6, but using the same principle. So again, we have our X, we have our Y, we're going to start with our X, and since we're looking for the letter S, 1, 2. Start with that. Now, what students are going to need, you have a ruler. I usually use a yardstick, but we need to, same principle for the 4-number grid rather. We're going to find S, but find which number belongs to S. So using the yardstick, measuring here, okay, putting it nice and straight. You notice it's just below the 4, and we always go with the number before. So our first number is going to be 3. Okay? Now that we have our X, we need our Y. Same principle, 0, 0. We already have those numbers, and we need one more number. Again, have your students using a ruler, and do this with them in class so that they can engage and also help you with it. But as we see the S, okay, not quite past the 7, so we're going to go with 6 for that one. Students should be able to see that. Okay? That's how we do the grid. Now, how do we apply different practices? Say, for example, if we go back to the 4-letter grid, they don't understand. One of the things I do is practice, 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 3 times. So, if I do this one, they understand, we're ready to move on. If I do this one, they don't understand, I'll do another letter. Say they don't understand again, I'll do another letter. Okay? By that time, they should understand, but to apply it, to make sure they know it, put some dots on there. Usually I'll add some songs. Since we have P, Q, R, S, why don't we have T, U, V, W? Okay? From there, students now have to find the 4-letter grid. Okay? If it continues, go ahead and add some more dots. Practice always makes perfect. Okay? As many practices as you need. Work with them one-on-one, especially the students that are struggling, and if you need to ability pair them, do that as well. For the 6-figure grid, I found it's a little bit more challenging, so you're going to have to do more practices. Okay? For this, again, don't hesitate. Add dots. Add letters. More practice, more practice. One thing I also found, apart from them doing it on their own, have them add random dots, add random letters, T, U, V, W, X, etc. Then switch with a partner. Then the partner has to find the 6-number grid. Okay? When that is all done and said, now we're ready for the next step. And the next step, apart from the math, is applying it to an actual map. Okay? And what I have here is that actual map. So, we use this map, and I freeze my screen. This map works perfectly in the case that, one, we have our map key, we have symbols, we have scale, okay, we have a grid. Now they're going to apply all of those skills. And what I have here are a set of questions that they're going to be using. Okay, we look at just the first one here. What direction? Again, by this point they've done cardinal directions. They know north, south, east, or west. So, looking at a map, try to emphasize with grades 6 and 7. Sometimes if they see from Anchortown to Bridgetown is one question I have. Well, if you notice, it's not going north, but rather going northeast. Emphasize that. I use my hands often. You've got to move your hand to the upper left, to the upper right to show northeast, northwest. Do that. Okay, so we have a cardinal direction one. Then I have questions dealing with the 4-figure grid, numbers 2 and 3. Okay, where they have to look at the map. Okay, and mine, I use symbols located next to a town. Make sure you emphasize that if you're doing this lesson, because sometimes if you say for example, port near Anchortown, they might just go to the dot, when rather they should be looking at the port right next to Anchortown. Helps with identifying, helps with directions, they're reading, they're following, works well. Okay, as we move on, it gets more difficult, and that's what I encourage you to do when you do this lesson with maps. So for here, apart from the 6-figure grid, now we're looking at scale. Again, with your ruler, we have our scale here in kilometers and centimeters. Have students start to measure directions. From Anchortown to Woolston, how far would you travel? That's going to get the students with their rulers. Now they got to measure all the way from Bridgetown, Miller's Junction, Woolston. Okay, another useful question using maps. What would I see from Anchortown to Woolston? What places would I encounter? What different areas from your map key would I see, etc. Okay. Once this is done, then you can move this grid and this lesson into something more complex in terms of outside of school. Okay. And one of my lessons I mentioned making a map of the floor. We kind of expanded that to making a map of the school. Now we're using a grid to map a practice map, and now they're going to apply that to something outside of the school. A project that I'm going to be doing in my next video is how to make a map from their home to school. Okay? Expanding, building on those skills. So, I hope you can use this. Anything that I use, please take and see what you can do with it, and hope you got something from it.